안녕하십니까. 예, 어떻게 이 기조 강연 사회를 맡게 됐습니다. 영어로 해야 되겠죠? I'm very honored to be presiding with Professor Larry Benz from University of Toronto, Department of Education, and his speech titled Research Informed Implementation Suggestions. And I'm hoping that this plenary speech will share how we improve our science education in this classroom and for the future development. And would you please welcome Dr. Larry Benz with big hands, please.
Okay, so I'm going to be talking to you about a project in which I've been involved for 10 years now, and it's kind of a culminating point in that project. We've got a new book out, and I'll tell you about that at the end probably. But I've been invited to actually talk about that particular project. There's lots of parts to it. I was just in India and did a 2-day workshop, and you can imagine that there are opportunities for people to get deeper into it than what I can do in 45 minutes. I hope I can do justice to the whole project in 45 minutes. But let me just start off by saying I'm extremely grateful to be here. This is quite an honor to be one of the opening speakers. And actually, as I was saying to the people at Ewha University, where I spoke the other day, this is not, I believe that the work that we do, or that I do, isn't necessarily that well accepted around the world. And so to be actually invited to talk about that is quite an honor, and I really hope that you find what I have to say quite useful. Now I'm going to start by, I'm going to start by saying that, as you probably know, and I actually don't know this in Korea, but there's been a lot of money, a lot of energy placed on STEM education. So education around getting students to become familiar with science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and maybe relationships among them. There seems to be a lot of orientation towards engineering in that, but in different places they take different definitions of it. But I want to place a lot of focus on the idea that these STEM movements seem to be about getting people to feel that we need a lot more STEM workers so that countries can compete in international economic competitions or challenges. And in doing so, many wonderful products and services will be developed. And there are some of these here. As well as that, there will be great happiness generated through these STEM products, as you can see in the lower right. So it's often, actually, there's a lot of literature on this to suggest that it's almost treated as a salvationary phenomenon. In other words, people think that we're going to be saved by STEM fields and STEM education. Now that's the experience we've had locally in North America, and I've seen it in other parts of the world as well, but I actually don't know about the situation in Korea, so maybe in the question and answer period people can talk to me a little bit about that. But the first thing I really wanted to stress is this very positive set of products and services that seem to be promised by those who promote STEM education. Now I feel that that's quite true. I'm actually a victim of a medical emergency a few years ago, and so I can speak from a personal point of view that STEM fields came to my rescue along with a number of people. And so there's no question that our societies have benefited greatly from these fields. Having said that, I clearly want to emphasize that we've got a lot of problems associated with STEM fields. And these are some of them. So you can imagine the diabetes and obesity, heart disease, various other problems related to fast foods and manufactured foods. The various problems associated with who makes our products and services, and how well they're paid and what kind of working conditions under which they work. The products and services that we consume are often disposed of very rapidly and then replaced by brand new products and services. I'm a little bit concerned about entertainment and the way that it's manipulating people's minds. I think that there's a lot of people out in the world that seem to have this difficulty with a lot of consumer entertainment products, television just being one aspect of it, obviously. And many people would suggest that our biggest challenge is climate change. Obviously through burning of fossil fuels and all the technologies, all the science and technology, the STEM field work that comes from those. And this is just the tip of the iceberg, per se, in terms of the kinds of problems that we face, associated, I want to emphasize, associated with STEM products and services. Now, this is a little schematic that I've developed over the last few years. There are many variations on this, but what I've attempted to do was to relate science, technology, engineering, mathematics to societies and environments. Now, it turns out in Canada, we have a branch of our curriculum called STSE education, so relating science to technology, to society, to environment. And it seems to me that many STEM STEM initiatives, STEM education initiatives, have dropped a lot of the references to society and environment. So this model is about laying claim to the importance of relationships among STEM fields and societies and environments. But my point of showing you this, and this is just one depiction, remember, is that if you can imagine me saying that there are a lot of problems associated with STEM fields, well, the question becomes, are we going to blame STEM fields themselves? Are we going to blame engineers and scientists and mathematicians? And I think perhaps the answer could be no, or at least leaning in that direction, that maybe the blame doesn't belong strictly to STEM fields. Maybe the blame should be thought of as distributed across this network. Notice that there are double arrows between every pair of items. So in other words, there are co-affected relationships. Now, the work that I do relies to a great extent on actor network theory. So my perspective here is that blame must be distributed across all of these kinds of entities, both living and non-living and symbolic, if you think of actor network in that way. Having said that, I actually don't believe that the distribution of power and blame is equally distributed across these networks. So I'm drawing from Foucault, with respect to his ideas around dispositives, that is, mechanisms composed of a series of actants, living, non-living, and semiotic, that when working together support each other in a common cause. And it seems to me that STEM fields are part of a dispositive, a global dispositive, consisting of transnational companies, transnational entities like the World Bank and the World Trade Organization and the International Monetary Fund. And you can see some entertainment industries, the global circulation of various forms of finance and currencies. And of course, governments are part of these networks, supporting the movement of ideas and perspectives that seem to be oriented towards concentration of capital into small numbers of hands at the expense of many individuals and environments around them. So this is my strong claim that actually we live in an environment that is largely influenced by these essentially corporate-driven, if you want to say it simplistically, entity or networks of power. So in a sense, STEM fields can't be blamed, but in fact they're part of the network. And we are part of the network, I believe. Now, for these reasons, it seems to me we need to follow Karl Marx in this particular statement, that it's not enough to know the world. We need to be in positions to change it. And as educators, we need to get students and future generations to the point that their interest is about contributing to a more positive world through this idea of networks. So, excuse me, for those reasons, my work has been largely focused on promoting critical and activist science education. Actually, that was the original title of this talk. So all of my work is about trying to get citizens to take critical views of STEM fields and their related entities within these networks. And then where they find concerns, and this is a crucial point I want to make, where the citizens or students find concerns, they are prepared to take actions to try to make a better world. So a common question I get, which may or may not be obvious, is that we're not saying to them, you need to direct your actions in particular ways. Otherwise, we would be guilty of an anti-democratic approach. Now, another part of the core of our work is that if we're going to promote activism, if we're going to get citizens to actually want to take actions, they have to feel the need to act. It has to be something important to them personally. They have to have some feeling and emotion associated with the concerns that are distributed across the world and locally. And so one of the ways we do that is through promotion of primary and secondary research led by the students. Now, I've been borrowing over the years from, I don't know if I have a pointer here. I do. No. So I've been borrowing from over the years from Roger Locke, this framework on the right, showing teacher-directed through student-directed procedures on the one axis, and then closed-ended through open-ended conclusions on the vertical axis. These research and action projects that we have the students carry out need to be eventually student-directed and open-ended in the upper right-hand corner. The idea being that they're in control of the procedures, and the conclusions are open-ended in the sense that there are many possible conclusions that could come from the work that they do. So, and those conclusions will ultimately be due to the findings that they generate, the theories they have, and the emotions that are part of their experiences. There are obviously multiple factors that contribute to their conclusions. But again, we promote both primary and secondary research, and I will just say a little bit about that, and that is that not just experimentation in terms of primary research, but if we're having students investigate things that are potential problems, often for living things, we also encourage the students to conduct studies where they're monitoring natural changes in the world to see if they have any effects on some living things. And rather than running experiments where, for example, I used to teach my students that you could test different amounts of cigarette smoking and see the effects that would have. That's not something we would recommend, obviously, in these kinds of investigations. So, broadly speaking, we promote research-informed and negotiated actions to address problems that the students perceive around relationships amongst science, technology, society, and environment, or STEM, society, and environment. Now to stepwise. So, if you're going to have students conduct their own research and use their findings to generate their own actions and carry out their own actions, that's a tall challenge in the current environment. I don't think we find in many school situations students having opportunities to design and conduct their own research, and very seldom do they have opportunities to develop actions. So in the current school environment, it seems that students need some help. We want them to be conducting student-directed and open-ended research-informed and negotiated action projects, but we can't expect them to do it right at the beginning. And that's been our experience. That's something you may want to ask me about. So some